Hello, folks. There seems to be a bit of a miscommunication about what I'm talking about here. So let's start off with I am not describing a value system. I am describing somewhat like a fire escape plan on the wall. So there may be argument that you don't like the fire escape plan. I don't see how that's relevant. Is the fire escape plan accurate or not is really where I'm at with this whole thing, because arguing values with people never functions. They're allowed to have their own values, and insisting on a legal system that only works on one set of values for 300 million people is ridiculous. So basically what this is for Ethan, this is an API key. API keys don't necessarily do anything. An API key just gives you access to a certain thing. That's it. It's not even a system, or it's not a function in and of itself. This function is to touch this thing and that alone. And the only reason I say we should use an ID system outside of this is because if for some reason the ID system, you wanted a different kind or a different method, then you should be able to replace your identification system. As long as it's accurate, peer-to-peer, all of this is peer-to-peer. That's really the point. There's no intermediary. The problem with intermediaries in a legal system is that they steal your agency. Your social agency should always, always, always be yours. And in any system that votes, your agency is gone. You cannot abstain from it, and you're stuck with the results. Voting is a crap system of doing things because there's always a loser, and there doesn't have to be a loser. You should have a menu. One group of people does one thing, one group of people does another. They should not be forced to put their ideas together, because usually what you get is a compromise. And I don't mean in a good way. You take idea A and you take idea B and you compromise them where they would both work if they were kept separate, but now you put them together, and because those two groups of people now have to work together, they each want pieces of them, and it ends up making the whole middle of the road idea really crap. So basically, you just have to get away from the idea that somebody else writes your laws for you. You write your own laws and you connect yourself in a legal silo. If I live here, and this other guy lives here, and here's the Texas-Louisiana property line, these people have different laws, even though they live 30 feet from each other. There's no real reason to do this. Does anybody care if the laws are California or over here on this guy? The only reason this matters is because the cops have a jurisdiction to where they can go to all three of these houses, which they often screw up the address because they don't have to get it right. So if you take away the legal immunity from these cops, and now they have to go to the right house, because if they're supposed to be enforcing, we're just calling it Texas now, it's going to be different system. Let's call one the Andrew Napolitano system, one the Alan Dershowitz system, and the in memorial of Johnny Cochran, it did not fit system, whatever. This guy, if the people who were supposed to enforce on this guy hit this guy's house or this guy's house, they're going to be seriously liable, because these people are going to come for them. And this is, or let's just say they're not going to come for them. This is where machinery of freedom, David Friedman's got this stuff. The only issue I ever had with machinery of freedom is it doesn't have a method by which that idea comes to being. It's spot on. David Friedman's amazing. So Bob's got chaos theory on lockdown. If you don't understand disintermediated defense, I understand. That's way more complicated than all of this. Peer-to-peer deeds, peer-to-peer deeds, peer-to-peer IDs, peer-to-peer charity, peer-to-peer environmental stuff. The EPA just purchases land instead of trying to lobby for how your land should be kept. They can just go buy Amazon and as much of Yosemite as the federal government will sell them to get out of Hawk, etc. The hard part here is the law. And I think the video explains that better. I won't get into it. Just the reason the law is a problem is because it emulates a system inside the military, the secret compartmentalized information system. Even the lawyers cannot dig to all of the laws to get to the bottom of that problem. And there's a reason. This SCI system was put in place for a reason. They'll tell you it was to keep the Russians out of all of the bins, so if they got into Langley, they wouldn't figure out everything. Sorry, that's a bunch of horseshit. The reason this exists is because 80%, 90% of the people actually working at the CIA are kind of decent human beings who think that they're doing something positive. And if they ever found out the shit that was going on down the hall, they wouldn't be there. So they have to keep everybody in the dark. And they have done that with the law. They change the definitions, they change the rules. They. It's always some fictitious entity represented by a human that doesn't give a shit about you. All of the people who are going to hurt you the most are not Chinese, they're not Russians, they're not North Koreans. They are Americans. They are going to hurt you. So what you have to understand is if you're going to allow other people to write laws for you, you better pick the person who does it. And I don't mean by vote and hope you win. I mean you better hand it to your father or something of that nature. So don't trust people to write laws for you. And yes, we could. The overall, this isn't to replace the video I put up there. This is, if you're putting a value judgment on this because you don't like it, fine. But if you think that this is a broken fire evacuation plan, then you need to critique it that way, because I'm really more interested in does it function and is it broken? Anybody who doesn't like it, respectfully, all of us who like it are going to live in this house, and the people who don't are going to live right next door, and I don't care. That's the whole purpose of this system, is to disintermediate the parties and let each one of them have what they want and see how shitty their ideas are. Honestly, the only way you teach a socialist a lesson is to expose them to the laws of thermodynamics long enough that they feel the burn. Then they figure it out, and it looks like Venezuela. We're getting there. We're getting there, and the only reason we're not there is because we can print dollars. And again, this gets to the bottom of Federal Reserve. No one mandates their coin. No one mandates you use their money, etc., etc. So, questions, comments, complaints, whatever. Just clearing up this is not a value judgment. I don't do that. This is strategy. This is an organizational matrix to try and explain these things. How do you disintermediate the state and take that agency back for yourself? And it looks like this.